Okay. Good to go.
All right, well, I'll officially call the meeting to order and we'll start with announcements. I guess the first announcements, I just want to wish everyone a happy holiday. Sometimes by the end of the meeting, I forget. So I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas. I hope everyone had a wonderful Hanukkah. And here's to a very happy 2021 for everyone. We have one check over 25,000, which was for Tom Bucci Excavating, part of the 2020 road milling and paving project from the water and general funds for $31,350. Which was included a water main break for $4,550, curbs and catch basins for $5,050, $6,550, and $12,800. That's all I have for announcements, unless anybody else has announcements.
Brian, we had two other checks.
Oh,
on the-
I don't.
They were after the agenda was published,
Oh,
so
I got it. We'll do it next time.
we'll put them on for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have something just to remind viewers that if they have been not in a cave, but have been paying attention, tonight is the night of the closest conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, right about now to the southwest. But of course,
Cloudy out.
Yeah, I tried looking at it.
We're here on Zoom, so.
no, but it's going to continue for, they're just going to get further apart over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and it's also today is every day is going to get a little lighter now until June, so that's also very positive to all of our pagan viewers tonight. It's a big day.
I also just wanted to mention it's part of the rec announcements, but Larry, do you wanted to just give a little bit of detail about the grant that was given to rec for the woods?
Sure. So we were awarded a New York State DEC grant for urban forestry, and the purpose and the use of it is to conduct an inventory and forest management plan for the Irvington Woods. So that doesn't mean that we're counting every tree, but we are taking representative areas and counting them to get a sense of what the makeup is, and then a management plan to go along with that. So the grant was for about $21,000, a little bit more. And we'll be, engaging with a professional to take care of that. And it was unexpected, to be perfectly honest with you. We applied for it pre-pandemic, hadn't heard anything, figured the funds were, unavailable, and it was awarded. So we'll see what happens.
That's fantastic. Much
It was a
needed.
surprise. Yep.
And perhaps we can piggyback a little bit on some of the work that Hastings has done, so we don't have to replicate some of that and be a little more efficient in our use of the grant money.
Yep.
All right, well, I will move along then to correspondence, which are actually both pieces of correspondence are related to the public hearing. So I will table those for now and bring them up during the public hearing. So I will turn it over to public comment that is not on the public hearing on the North Broadway Mixed Use District. So any other topics?
So if anyone wants to raise their hand, or I believe *6. I don't see anyone called in on the phone, so.
Okay, so if we don't have any public comment, I will move on to the consent agenda. Larry, you had one correction on the consent agenda, I believe.
Yeah, so item 5D, the appointment for the laborer, Brian Ross. Salary was originally listed at $50,853. That was an incorrect number. It should be $50,301. So just a misinterpretation of the contract.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the. Well, hang on. I had trouble unmuting for some reason at but I had one quick question that maybe Brenda could help me with. I was looking at the budget transfers, and I don't know how common it is, but I saw that there was several insurance payments for police vehicle stuff for totaling about $2,400. So what was that from? Are those accidents in the line of work?
Minor fender benders. I think one was a refund of a deductible because it wasn't our fault. So we got that back. And I do itemize them separately because when they come in, I like to see the offset as a budget amendment. So I add them as each check comes in.
Yeah, I was just wondering because, I hadn't heard of any big thing, although I guess
no, not big.
$2,400 is not that big of a thing with plastic bumpers.
Sometimes it's not even our fault. For the village's fault. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I will make a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended. If I can have a second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is a continuation of the public hearing to consider a local law amending the zoning code to create the North Broadway Mixed Use District. Obviously, last Wednesday, we had a work session. We're still in listening mode. I think we're still in thinking mode as well about all the comments that we've heard, in kind of this revised version. We still have some decisions to make, and we would like to continue to hear from the public. I don't know if Mary Ann, you want to update anything now, or we're just still kind of listening.
No, there really hasn't been any change. I mean, a couple meetings ago, I went through all the changes. We're still working from the same draft.
Okay. You know what I'll do now
The
is,
main issue, I would say that the main issue, Brian, is for the board is deciding what moderate income, what level of income you want to give a bonus for moderate income.
100, 120, 150. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the board did, seem to think 150 was probably more than they wanted to go, but whether it's 120, that seems to be the major issue.
Agreed.
The other one was about the impact of additional units on FAR and coverage.
Yeah, there are other issues, yes, but I'm talking about from what was in the, in the language of the last draft. That was the language we were fooling with, yeah. And then, but Mark, you're referring to whether we might consider a bonus beside one of the property owners pointed out that, you can give us more density, but unless you let us make the buildings bigger, it's not going to work. And so if we're going to consider that, and then it's certainly relevant what it's going to look like. And we have asked the planner to let us know what it would look like at a higher footprint, a bigger size.
Yeah, okay. I was just trying to get people filled in on, because there were comments about that at the last work session, I think, that
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah, well, she and Larry and I met with Ashley the other day, and she should have something in time for the next work session. This will probably come up at the work session in January.
Great. You know what I'll do is I'm going to actually read the first letter from David S. Goshu, so I don't forget. To the Board of Trustees, my name is Dave Goshu, and I live at 4 Meadowbrook Road in Irvington. I'm writing to inquire about the MFO zoning proposal's financial impact on our community. Is the board conducting analysis of the tax implications of the possible development plans for the properties on North Broadway? The property's current tax profile could be used as the base case in a scenario analysis. It'd be helpful for Irvington residents to know how much tax revenue the different potential projects would generate under different scenarios. From 60 units being developed at Maxon within a year or two, there's many 167 units built in 3 to 5 years, et cetera. Also knowing whether a development has other characteristics such as public-private partnership could also give us a better idea of the financial impact. For example, to what degree would tax revenue be reduced if development were built with a larger number of subsidized units than a minimum required by the proposed MFO zoning? I'm sure my fellow Irvington residents will be grateful for more information. Thank you for all your work on behalf of our village. Sincerely, David S. Goshu. I think that, obviously, a lot of it's going to depend on what the actual proposals are, and I think it kind of makes some of it hard to kind of really, you can make, I think there's a lot of assumptions that would have to be made to kind of do that analysis, and I'm not sure how valuable it is. It's something we can definitely talk about and do some base cases, but I don't know if anybody else has any comments on that. But.
This is arbitrary based on what the configurations of the various site plans would be.
Right, which is hard to do. You could do so many different scenarios. I wonder, I see Rebecca Valk has her hand up. I don't know if.
Okay.
Sometime maybe it's related to that letter. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's see.
It's time for public comment anyway, so.
No, that's fine.
But don't let me forget Dave Smith's letter. If someone doesn't speak to it, in person.
Okay, Rebecca, there you go.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
The question of 2020, can you hear me now? Good evening, Mayor Smith and members of the Board of Trustees. Rebecca Volk with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader on behalf of the owners of the Maxon property who joined me this evening at this meeting. As you know, we appeared before you on December 7th, 2020, when David Smith of Planning and Development Advisors made a formal presentation to this board specifically regarding the proposed zoning considered for the Maxon property, and the other 3 properties contemplated for the district. At that meeting, we asked for the opportunity to make an additional submission, particularly about some assumptions made as to the need for assisted living to provide housing opportunities for urban seniors. We submitted our comments by letter dated December 16th, 2020, and I would like to briefly review the points of that letter. That is the letter from David Smith that the mayor just referred to.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. First, we would just like to address the comments made and endorsed by some members that an assisted living facility is a commercial use. Frankly, this is simply inaccurate. It is a residential community for those citizens approaching their last years with the need for some additional supports. The argument has been made by other municipalities in New York when it comes to some form of group living where support staff may be present, and the assumption that that makes it somehow a commercial use. The courts have largely rejected the argument that the presence of some staff converts a residential use into a commercial enterprise. There was also a comment as to the need for the facility. David spoke with Brightview Senior Living, who reported that they typically operate at 91 to 92% capacity. Albeit there is a current reduction to 70%, not the significantly reduced percentage that had been stated at the last meeting. But this temporary reduction is due to the current pandemic, and there is no expectation that it will last in the long term. There was also a statement made that you do not believe that there might be a use for this proposed assisted living in the village of Irvington. David attached to the letter with a website from Cornell showing that the over 65 population of Westchester County is expected to grow by 26% in the next 20 years. Westchester County already has a low supply of senior-related housing and experiences some of the highest migration rates for seniors. They're leaving the local communities because they don't have the housing opportunities to stay. In closing, I offer that Dave Smith can be available for another work session with the village to discuss these points, as well as the requested revisions for the floor area ratio. I thank you for your time. I hope you have happy holidays. And if you have any questions at this time, I'm happy to address them or mark them for further response if I need to defer them to Mr. Smith.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And we obviously have Dave's letter, and we discussed his other letter, which was a little more lengthy at the last meeting, but we hadn't posted it. So that one's also included in the correspondence tonight. So anybody that wasn't able to read that, we had, talked about it. We had read it obviously as a board, but we hadn't posted it yet. So that's there. And it actually also references an earlier letter. So it's kind of a good summation of a lot of information. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great holiday.
You too.
Thanks. It's like Peter Bernstein.
Yep. Hold on. Okay, Peter.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Peter.
Hello.
A couple of days ago, I ran into on the street one of our great DPW guys who live in the village, and congratulated him on the excellent job as usual that the village did cleaning up after the storm, and they always do such a great job. And we got into a conversation. He's a lifelong Irvingtonian. He's got 3 kids. We talked about the same age as my kids. We talked about the lack of affordable housing for the next generation. And he expressed his concern about his kids, the likelihood of them having to move far away. He obviously has, worked for the village for, decades. And, isn't in a position with the salaries we pay for, to help his kids buy a house in Irvington, that's for sure. So it brought to mind again, the need for truly affordable housing in Irvington. But he also mentioned, that part of the reason why they can do such a good job is when there's a snowstorm, they don't have to drive from 2 hours away to get here to clean up. A lot of the crew still is able to live here. So, so it emphasized for me, how great it is that we have village employees who are able to live in the village, and, how can we keep that? So that's one comment. The second comment is, the talk about, that density bonuses should be given for moderate income, and you just, have to tweak it from, 150 to a lower number. I argue that, density increases should be for affordable, truly affordable housing at 80% or even below, so that we can have people like our village employees and their kids able to stay here. The third point I'd like to make is, to remind, or I guess add another example of the kind of creative thinking and the creative financing that can be done for affordable housing. I think the last time we spoke, I mentioned the Peekskill development that had $50 million all towards affordable housing with a variety of financing. I saw this last week or so that Tuckahoe is building, I think it's 130 affordable units. Some of it's a refurbishing of existing structures. But again, when you notice, you notice that it's a combination of low-income tax credits. It's a combination of IDA, county IDA supported tax exempt, borrowing. It's HUD support. So again, where there's a will to build affordable housing, it can be done, just, despite the fact that, how expensive it is to build. So again, I just encourage the trustees to not think that the only way that something that would be valuable to the community gets built is by, by incenting market value development with 10% set aside. I think we could do better than that, and it's not a pipe dream. It's actually being done around the county. So that's my comments, and thanks as always for listening.
Thanks, Peter, and I like your background on your picture.
I'll have to check and see which one it is. Now I'm worried.
No, it looks like pine trees and maybe some mountains. But
okay, good.
You look very rugged. Is it Katerina?
Hold on one
Hello?
second. Yeah.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yes, good evening. So now that some other listeners are repeating what they had said during the previous meeting, I think I will have to repeat my points once again, that all this talks about affordable housing is nice, and having diversity in schools are nice too, but I believe that we already have more diversity than we can afford, which is why our property taxes are extremely high, and they bring down the housing market here. And for those of us who haven't even lived for that long in a village and purchased our homes at the near the top of the market, and we wouldn't want to lose anything if we would have to resell right now, let's say if the schools continue falling down in their rating, and I'm sure that many people are looking at that. Again, I would have to remind everyone that Irvington already has about 10% of student population who technically we support. and that Irvington School District pays for every student about $37,000 per year, not pays, spends, and that given the total number of students, which varies from 1,700 students to 2,000 students, 10% of total student population is close to 200 students. And even though I know that some people didn't want to multiply this number on the number that the district spends per student per year, which is close to 37,000, but I cannot help but think about that. And also, I wanted to make a point that I've been watching the housing market very closely, and even despite the mass exodus from New York City, I see that the prices, the housing prices are already falling down, which I think probably have to do with the revaluation, which was done by Greenberg. I was among those unfortunate homeowners who was greatly affected by that. And I even wanted to give you a couple of examples. I'll just go to my screenshots right now. So I looked at the sales in a village, recent sales. So here is one, 62 Arsley Avenue West. It was sold in 2014 for $2,650,000. It was recently resold for just $2,080,000. So basically, some people lost close to $1 million on reselling their property because so the difference is about $600,000 plus the broker's fees, probably some renovations, so on. It's probably even more than $1 million. Then there is another one, a property which is almost 700,000 square feet. And it was here in Ardsley Park, which is probably the best location in the village. And it was sold for only $1,850,000. I mean, for a house of almost 7,000 square feet in size, that is a very low price. And once again, this just reiterates my concern that all of us are going to lose a lot of money if our taxes will go up, and they will definitely go up if we would have to pay for larger number of students from affordable housings. And again, we already have more than enough financial and other type of diversity. And like I stated before, I believe that we're already stretching too thin. Thank you.
All right, looks like Tom Thacker has his hand up.
Mama?
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're on.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody this evening?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. I'd just like to respond to the last person who spoke, and she has misspoken again. She says 10% of students in Irvington are subsidized, and I think the board knows, and I just want this to be on the record and for anybody else listening, the whole idea behind public education is that it's free and that we all pay for it. All the taxpayers in Irvington and other communities pay for public education, and we all benefit from it. And so, I mean, I guess one could argue that people who don't have children in the schools are subsidizing kids in the schools, but that's historically has not been the way that people have viewed public education. Public education is free. It's meant for children who want to take advantage of it. And so there's no notion of subsidizing people in affordable housing or in wealthy housing or anything in between. And so I just wanted to respond to her about that. And the other thing that I would say is in regards to these density bonuses, at the work session, you asked me to reach out to some people, and I have done so, and I will get back to you about that. But I just want to remind the board, and I think you know this, and anybody who's listening, that the 120 to 150% of AMI figure came, I think, from one developer who you spoke to, And so I think it will be very interesting to speak to other developers and see whether or not that's a realistic figure or whether that's highly, highly inflated. That's it. Thank you.
Peter?
Hold on. Okay, Peter Buderi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Loud and clear, Peter. Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to make some comments starting with the purpose of the zoning resolution as stated in its first paragraph, which has 5 principal objectives. A, the facilitation of the efficient and adequate provision of public facilities and services. B, the provision of privacy for families. C, the prevention and reduction of traffic congestion. D, the protection of residential areas by, among others, the preservation of such areas from the visual intrusion of non-residential uses. And E, the enhancement of the appearance of the village as a whole. I mention that because the proposed MFO zoning works against all of those objectives. So starting with the bulk, as I've said when we were talking about the NMMD original iteration, this one does not change the bulk, that is the actual building size. Building coverage is going to almost double on the Maxon site compared with what's allowable now for residential construction, and the allowable floor area would go up on both the Maxon and the 90 North Broadway site by about 2.5 times. And having this huge bulk is what would produce a principal negative impact on Irvington's built environment, contrary to purpose E of enhancement of the appearance of the village. You're going to have huge buildings looming over the neighborhood, and now I'm a little bit distressed to hear suggestions that we increase the FAR even more. And I think there was a suggestion of allowing a 4th story on those properties. That's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is the density of the dwelling units. Under this MFO zoning, 67 dwelling units that could be built on the Maxon site represents 16.7 units per acre. Half Moon has 13.5 units per acre. Woodbrook Gardens and Cedar Hill have 12.4 and 12.7 units per acre. So this would be 23 to 35% denser than those complexes, which are already quite dense compared with Irvington. But perhaps of more interest, the 5 garden apartment complexes in Irvington, Half Moon, Woodbrook Gardens, Cedar Hill, Irvington Estates, and Irvington Gardens, account for 581 units of the village's total of 2327 housing units. That's 25%. Units for sale in those complexes are currently listed at prices from $194,900 to $384,900. So a lot of them already are affordable to families making 80% of the AMI. And at Cedar Hill, a rental, a 1-bedroom unit rents for $1,900, which is also affordable to a 2-person household with 80% AMI income. Despite all that, several co-op apartments in these complexes have been listed for sale for more than 200 days, which brings into question whether there is really a great demand for these apartments. So just to repeat, 25% affordable just in those 5 complexes, and I don't have any knowledge of all of the units on and near Main Street, the affordable units on Astor Street, and it seems as though Irvington already has a diverse housing stock that's affordable by families from a wide range of incomes, from 80% to average AMI and so on. So I think the notion that Irvington has excluded families with moderate incomes is just a mistaken point of departure for this zoning resolution. Traffic, as I mentioned, Objective C and the main purpose of the resolution is to prevent and reduce traffic congestion. Right now, Upper Broadway has 197 co-op units just from 120 and 140 North Broadway accessing Broadway, and it's very crowded during rush hour. There's a lot of traffic during rush hour. Here we have a possibility of almost doubling it. By the way, one of Woodbrook Gardens has an alternate exit on East Sunnyside. So adding 167 units would almost double that number. Regarding the school population, I think other people have implied this or said this, but we were given a generation rate of 0.2 based on the current population of the co-op of the garden apartments, to my memory. But if you're building brand new housing, I would think that you're going to have more new families with children coming in than living in existing 70-year-old housing projects. So I think that that study could be done better. And also, I don't see why the school cannot give us a very accurate accounting of how much more costs. I know it's been stated that the physical plant can accommodate many more students, but it was also said that if you add students, you're going to have to add teachers, other personnel, and so on and so forth. I would think it would be an important service to the taxpayer and to Irvington people to tell us, to do a serious study of how much more money it would cost for 20 more, 40 more, 60 more, 80 more students entering the schools.
Well, we've actually had those conversations, and if you could tell me who those 20 or 30 more students are, we can do it. If they're all, kindergarten students, it's very difficult. If they're spread throughout, if there's no impact at all, and it would actually bring the average cost down. So that's what's hard. It's without, we can do every kind of scenario we want, but it's impossible to tell exactly. But most of the scenarios are marginal impacts.
Well, I don't want to get into a back and forth so much, but I just, since you responded, just want to comment that the fact that we can't settle the exact scenario that's going to be the case doesn't mean that you can't make a couple of assumptions and start by determining the costs of any of a particular given scenario. That would seem to be reasonable. You never know exactly what it's going to end up.
Sure. I think we've done that quite a bit, but to continue, we can always do more. Go ahead.
Okay. So then regarding taxes, I did look at the taxes on these garden apartments, these affordable garden apartments that we already have in Irvington. As one example, this is admittedly the lowest taxed of the complexes. 120 North Broadway, which has 88 units, yields a total taxes of $167,800, which is less than 3 single-family residences on the other side of Broadway. We're not talking about estates, but on 1 acre or smaller lots, which might be comparable to those developed in the current zoning on Maxon and Carafiello. So if the board is thinking that all those units are going to give us greater tax revenue, that's not clearly the case. It seems like they might give less. And of course, there'll be more services from 167 families than from 8 families. So I think that's something that also David Gouchot in his letter asked the same thing, that the board study in more detail and make some assumptions, not say that you can't make an assumption, therefore you can't do the study. Also, I think that, did I mute myself? No.
No.
The trustees have noted on a few occasions that I remember that fair and affordable under the zoning resolution of 80% of AMI, these people are not poor. So, you know, we're not talking about Section 8 housing. However, that's just the minimum required by zoning. As I think a lot of, you know, people, I think Mr. Thacker mentioned tonight, there's a possibility of publicly assisted housing that could involve less well-to-do people than 80% of AMI. And in that case, I think the board should determine what the tax implication of those units were. If we did have a development that was, you know, largely lower than that price, what would the taxes, the property taxes resulting be? And those are my comments for tonight. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk.
Okay, thank you. Katerina wants to talk again, Larry?
Yep. Okay.
Yes, hello again. First of all, I wanted to thank Peter Baudry. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, for more detailed information, and specifically regarding the issues that I am very concerned about. And I also wanted to reply to another gentleman, I believe his name is Tom, who said that education is free. I mean, if it would have been free, we wouldn't be paying that much in property taxes. So it's not free at all. And for some of us, like I have my own 3 children to support. All 3 of them are little, as a matter of fact. And they're being very loud right now. Excuse me. So, yeah, so we do have a lot of expenses. The education is not free at all. And not all of us were born, you know, with a silver spoon in our mouths to be able to afford losing a lot of money on the resale of our properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Bernstein.
Yep. Peter?
Yeah, just quick comment on the availability of housing in the lower price range in Irvington. You know, maybe that, you know, there's a certain number of reasonably or somewhat affordable units, but if you look at those that are the subset of available houses for sale and the subset of houses of apartments for rent right now, or I should say houses and apartments for sale and apartments for rent right now, there's a handful of apartments for rent and for sale at, you know, let's say below 300,000 for the sale, and, you know, below 2,500 for the rental. So it's, you know, just not true that, yeah, and there's a ton of more expensive units for sale on the market. So it's just not true that, like, a look at vacancies or availability of homes and apartments towards the lower end is great and indicates that there's no demand for, you know, houses and apartments on the lower range. And I just looked online and, you know, saw the listings just now. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like that might be it for tonight, Larry. Obviously, the public hearing will remain open. Thank you, everyone, for attending that public hearing. Now we get to the more mundane tasks of the meeting. Let me just open up my agenda here, saving paper. Next up, we have volunteer appointment to the Green Policy Task Force. Not say appointments, there's quite a few of them. Larry, as we discussed, we weren't able to confirm with everyone if they wanted to still continue, but we kind of decided to appoint them, and if they don't want to continue, we'll remove them from the list.
We'll make adjustments. Yeah, but this is the last good list that we had.
Great. Anyone have any questions on this, or I'll start reading? All right. Resolved to appoint the following volunteer members to the Green Policy Task Force with the term to expire December 2021. On the steering committee, Leola Speck, Nikki Connington, Jacina Sarelli, Judy Frimmer, Charlotte Binns. As members, Ann Jaffe Home, Akia Tamida, Amy Ziff, Aaliyah Huperkar, Cheryl Brandywine, Michelle Ludmar, Gwen Merkin, Jan Blair, Jessica Munzel, Joan Nelson, Josie Bloom, Rona Bard, Kristen Mann, Linda Tomsky, Melissa Brown, MJ Wilson, Rebecca Peltier, Tessa Beltrano, and Thomas Flanagan. I'll make the motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Larry,
Next
I
up
just
is-
wanted, just let me interrupt and say, make
Sure.
sure if we could, that the steering committee understands that they need to verify that list, because I know Leola was sending out an email, but I'm not sure, I didn't see any responses from it, so.
Yeah, no, that's who we've been working with. So we'll nail it down for sure.
Yeah, we were just kind of waiting to hear back, but we figured since their term was expiring, we might as well reappoint, and then we, as Larry said, we can adjust. I said remove, adjust is much nicer. Next up, we have a appointment to the planning board. Michael Smith, I think, is well known to all of us. We're happy that he is, I think he's still staying on RPAC as well, at least for now. But I think it's great that we all kind of knew him well. We have some other very good candidates that we have a couple more interviews to do, and then we'll be having some additional appointments early in 2021. But tonight, we're really happy that Michael has agreed. So I'll just read it. Resolved to appoint Michael Smith as a member of the planning board with the term to expire December 2024. If I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Michael. Next up, we have a volunteer appointment to the Irvington Woods Committee. Resolved to appoint Francis O'Shea as a member of the Irvington Woods Committee with a term to expire in December of 2021. I'll make the motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, we have a request to remove a parking space on South Ecker Street. This is the second time this has been on our agenda. The first time we actually asked if they could get some input from their neighbors for us, which I think, Larry, the last one I saw, they had a kind of a handful, but I think it was the neighbors kind of most directly impacted, which are the closest neighbors.
Yeah. So the owner did that, was able to contact a few of the neighbors, just didn't contact everyone on the street, was having trouble finding people home necessarily, but didn't have any negative feedback, which is also useful information. And
I think you also spoke to Ed about if anyone had kind of raised any complaints or issues. And
yeah, from a planning board standpoint, there haven't been any issues about that particular question, the loss of the parking space. They sent it over to you as a board to approve that, but it's not a controversial issue. And that was confirmed by the contact that he had with the neighbors.
And I think too, one of the mitigating factors for me is that it does kind of make that last spot potentially more usable. So it's, you kind of gained a half a spot and even though you're losing one. But I don't know if anyone else on the board have any thoughts on this, or everyone okay with it now?
Well, I walked by yesterday and, I agree that last spot is right up against the fence of Barney Park. So, and there's a drain there as well. So I think it'll open that spot a little bit better. I did note, and again, I know it's not the board's issue, it would be a planning board issue, but it's a fairly steep drop down that driveway. So they're going to have some work to do to construct whatever it is that they're planning to construct. But that's not our issue, so.
Well, I'm glad that some neighbors were contacted and that this analysis of that last spot seems to be confirmed. So those were the key things. So I'm fine with it.
All right. Whereas Brandon and Kathy Hall have requested the removal of one on-street parking space on the west side of South Ecker Street near the front of 32 South Ecker Street in order to install a curb cut and driveway alongside their home. Whereas the Board of Trustees has reviewed the parking situation in the immediate area, determined that the elimination of one public parking space is outweighed by the advantage of eliminating 2 cars from parking on the public street. Now therefore be it resolved to approve the removal of a 1 on-street parking space adjacent to 32 South Ecker Street, provide the curb cut and driveway are constructed as proposed and subject to site development plan approval by the planning board. I'll make a motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Greenberg to continue with the Special Weapons and Tactics Unit, which is SWAT. We did have a comment from someone on the newly formed police committee that they would like to review the agreement. I think I have no objection to that. We definitely want their opinion on this. I think what practically speaking makes most sense to me is that we approve this and we could all, always withdraw from it. I think if we needed to, we can certainly request, changes to the tactics and things like that. I don't think this precludes anything. I think it just allows us to continue to participate while we perform our review, in my opinion.
And I think also the information that we got from Frank Pignatelli telling us that basically it's an accredited, SWAT organization accredited by the state, and they use all state prepared training programs for it. So my feeling is kind of like any changes that come out of this police procedures review that's happening statewide, it is going to, some of it may filter into SWAT areas, and if so, the SWAT training requirements will be adjusted at the state level, which means basically Greenberg's going to inherit that. So I think that's it's a pretty safe bet that any of those kind of issues are going to be addressed when decisions are made about them at the state level.
Well, I was happy to get a lot of input from Frank Pignatelli on this, not being very familiar with SWAT training. That was useful information, and I feel confident that if we had more questions, we could get further answers. And I share Mark's sense that with an accredited training from Greenberg, that changes or further reforms would be incorporated at the Greenberg level. So I am glad to have gotten that information. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to thank Lieutenant Pignatelli as well for putting together a very thorough, summary for us. Otherwise, I think we're good to go here. Whereas the town of Greenberg, together with its incorporated villages, established a Special Weapons and Tactics Unit, SWAT, to effectuate a joint service committed to quickly respond to situations involving potentially armed and dangerous suspects in order to execute high-risk arrest and search warrants. And whereas it is the desire of the village of Irvington to continue to be a member of the SWAT unit by providing officers to receive specialized training and be available to respond to emergency situations with the SWAT unit. Now therefore be it resolved to authorize the village administrator to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Greenberg and the villages of Ardsley, Dobbs Ferry, Elmsford, Hastings-on-Hudson, and Tarrytown for the purposes of continuing with the joint Special Weapons and Tactics Unit. I'll make the motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have approval of the 2020-21.
Well, I just want to say a question popped up. Maybe this is related to what we were just talking about.
Oh.
No, it's related to,
Affordable apartments.
yeah. Peter Bernstein was passing along information about financing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I didn't take it.
I didn't see that.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I missed it as well. So we'll take a look at that. Not related to SWAT though. Or not directly anyway. Next is the approval of 2021 snow and ice supplemental agreement with the New York State Department of Transportation. Anybody had any questions on this one? This is, I think, fairly standard, Larry.
Yeah, this is a continuation of an agreement that, we plow North and South Broadway for the state. The state reimburses us based upon the terms of this contract.
Who fills out all that, the estimated costs and stuff?
It depends. I believe that the costs that you see there are based on kind of the regional state costs. And then they extrapolate that across all of the entities that they're in contract with. So essentially they use some sort of a formula that says in the past year, every time their vehicles leave the yard to address an issue on a state road, they accumulate that cost, determine what their cost per mile is, and then assign that cost per mile to the Village of Irvington. And that's how much we get reimbursed, at least as an estimate going into the year. We eventually true up the estimate depending on how much it actually snows during the year. So it's a little,
This
yeah.
is the state DOT filling out the numbers.
I believe that is, yeah. There are some numbers that are our numbers, but I don't think on this particular document at this time. Yeah.
What triggered the question was I just saw that it said, well, we had so little snow last year that we had to make an upward adjustment of what we're projecting as costs. So I don't know, if they don't use a rolling average or what for making projections.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with how the formula works. All I know is they come in with a base number and then it gets adjusted upwards after the season is over based upon the number of times the response is needed.
And the amount of salt and all that.
Yeah, essentially, but there's an aggregate cost per mile that is really applied. So we don't measure out how much salt we throw on Broadway, for example. You know what I mean? It's kind of an aggregate number.
Uh-huh. No one's out there with teaspoons.
No.
Whereas the Village of Irvington and the New York State Department of Transportation have entered into an agreement providing for the village's removal of snow and ice from North and South Broadway. Now therefore be it resolved to approve the 2020-2021 snow and ice supplemental agreement between the Village of Irvington and the New York State Department of Transportation, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. I'll make a motion if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Reports of boards, standing committees, and officers. Trustee liaison reports. Start with Mark.
I don't have too much. There's been some, ongoing discussions about it at the Tree Commission about dealing with replant agreements, and I think that Alan will be bringing that up to discuss with Larry at some point in the near future. So beyond that, everything else seems pretty calm.
Excellent. Larry?
We are grateful for the donations, which will enable us over the next 2 days to provide gifts, toys, food, and supplies to 70 senior citizens, 26 families, and 39 school-age children. Real team effort with volunteers and generous residents and their friends. We are very excited about the announcement regarding the urban forestry grant, as Larry read the letter and explained that, and that's all for the benefit of the Irvington Woods Park. The tennis courts at Memorial Park are now officially closed for the winter. On December 12th, close to 40 volunteers and staff worked in the Irvington Woods Park, many cutting invasive vines, others removing barberry bushes, and a third group working on the Eagle Scout project, which is developing a new trail to the marshlands. There will be additional days where similar work will continue. Weather will dictate the times. Please remember when using the Irvington Woods Park and Halsey Pond that the rule is you must carry in and carry out. The IASC report, we have officially been awarded year 7 of the Drug-Free Communities Grant through October 2021 in the amount of $125,000. In collaboration with the school district, we recently completed the Pride Student Survey to monitor data and trends surrounding youth substance abuse. IS continues to co-sponsor the monthly virtual speaker series KNOW, No to Prevent speaker. December's webinar focused on youth mental health. The next webinar will take place on January 20th at 7 p.m. Next IS board meeting is Tuesday, January 26th, 2021. And not just IS, but all of REC wishes everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays from everyone.
That's it?
That's it.
Connie?
I haven't seen the DPW report, but it usually comes to Larry Shopper and you, Brian. So if you see that, maybe some people would be interested.
I didn't see it.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, other than that, I have no report.
Perfect. Janice?
The fire department continues COVID response, mask and social distancing when possible, given what's going on. The big news was the fire at 141 Locust Lane in Downingwood. Everyone responded. There was mutual aid, successful resolution. Training in December included bailout, first aid CPR, and January 5th is building construction coming up. Gear cleaning project is complete. The most important thing, of course, is that the fire truck containing Santa went up and down the streets of the village this weekend, which was very welcome to all. And it was also nice to hear the sirens for that reason and not for another fire. So thanks.
Great. Now we're up to village administrator's report.
So two quick announcements. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. there will be a plaque installation being done near the Ben Franklin mile markers, one by Mercy College and one by Harriman Road, South Broadway. It's not a public event. There's no fanfare. We're not inviting people to come. I may show up just to see what's going on. I'm not sure if Connie will stop by, but there will be something planned in better weather, maybe, post-pandemic, I don't know, but they'll plan something to celebrate the installation and the refurbishment of these markers. But the plaques are being installed tomorrow. And
Larry, could I just say, maybe you could put out through the e-blast what the text of the markers are. So
yeah, I'll take a picture and post something for social media and the website and email. The other thing is just to let you know, and Brenda knows firsthand on this, we for this snowstorm that we had on largely Thursday, we ended up closing almost all of the village offices. Then they ended up staying closed the entire day. We ordinarily would have not done that. I mean, the storm was over in the morning. We could have certainly been in there by noontime without being in the way of anyone. But with this, kind of the side benefit of this pandemic, we're all used to working from home, and we have very few visitors to Village Hall, at least ones that we interact with. Most people who come to Village Hall drop things off in the vestibule. We leave things for people to pick up. So there just isn't a lot of in-person activity, as you'd expect. So we were really able to function the day. And I don't think the residents, lost services as a result. We were responding to phone calls that were being forwarded and emails and all the things we've been doing remotely up till now. So it was an interesting experiment and it seemed to work. And I just wanted to just let you know that happened. I don't know if it'll stay that way forever, of course, but at least for now, it seems to be a safer way to operate and yet not really lose any services.
I didn't get any complaints.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, if it didn't work out, we wouldn't do it again. But it just, it seemed to make sense. Seemed kind of silly to come racing to Village Hall to sit there and not interact with anyone except over a phone or on a computer. So,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just didn't make sense. So,
All of
New
us
way of
have
thinking.
India.
yeah, that's it.
Great. Village clerk treasurer's report.
I was going to chime in, just say that everyone in my office has remote access to all of their programs, as well as all their emails. So we do return calls during the day, even when we're not in the office. We keep on top of all inquiries and requests. So it is pretty seamless if they're home, as far as interacting with the public. So I want to just remind everyone that the second half village taxes are due by the end of the month. I've had some residents express concern over mailing them in and the post office being very slow on delivery. I just want to tell everyone that as long as it's postmarked by the 31st, it doesn't matter when it's received. It's the postmark date that we go by. So if you can make your way to a post office, that would be fine. Otherwise, you can pay online or drop off payment in the vestibule and come to the window if you really want to.
Great.
That's it.
Village Attorney's report.
I don't have one.
Public comment. I guess while we're waiting, review of action items. I didn't really have any, Larry.
No,
Except to take a picture of the plaque.
I'll do that. I'm not good with all that stuff, but I always forget, but I'll try to make sure. And you can remind me.
All right. Well, there being nothing further, I'll just wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, a Happy New Year, and can't wait to get back at it early in 2021. So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
We have a brief meeting with Mary Ann. You have the login.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.